Well, hello everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Pat Hyde, Director of Public Works for the City of Saskatoon. Today I wanted to give you a brief overview of what's happening coming up as we prepare for winter. Fall is slowly dwindling away from us, and we expect snow at some point in time, although we're all hoping that snow will hold off for the foreseeable future and maybe a few weeks longer than that as well too. What we have planned right now is coming up on starting Monday, October 20th, is the fall sweep. Last year we piloted a fall sweep in Saskatoon for the first time in probably ever, and in many cases this fall sweep here is a continuation of what we did last year, and the fall sweep itself will be identified in core neighborhoods. We have a selected 10 neighborhoods to be doing the fall sweep this year. Those 10 neighborhoods are City Park, North Park, Holiday Park, King George, Riversdale, Caswell Hill, Nutana, Varsity View, Buena Vista, and Westmount. And the reason we do the fall sweep is that it helps clear the clutter, the debris, the leaves, etc. from the curb lanes and the gutter along the streets, so that come springtime we can have a more effective and a more efficient spring melt. We don't have the same debris that's cluttering up the catch basins, and it also helps the sweep program when we do start it in the fall. When we do a citywide curb-to-curb sweep, we can get the debris off the street that much quicker, and the streets will end up cleaner as a result of that. As we did last year, and we did as well with the winter program, and this past summer with the citywide accelerated sweep, we will be using the high visibility yellow sandwich boards beside me here, and that sandwich board will be placed out along all the streets that will be identified for sweeping on that day. You'll see on the sign there that the times are posted as to when the restriction is imposed for parking, and the day that the parking is set for, or the parking enforcement, is set for. We will be doing ticketed and towing for non-compliant vehicles at 7 a.m. that we're asking vehicles to be off the street, and after that time frame we will be doing parking enforcement. The parking ticket is a $100 fine, and the parking enforcement also includes a relocation tow for those vehicles that don't comply. And we will tow those vehicles around the corner in most cases, or to a nearby street that doesn't have sweeping scheduled for that street. The schedule itself is based on the grid patterns of the streets itself, and the streets within those neighborhoods have both streets and avenues. And what we're doing is we're splitting up each neighborhood so that we'll do streets on one day, avenues on another day. So if you live on a street, you'll be able to be able to use parking on the avenues, and if you live on the avenue when that's scheduled, you'll be able to park on the street. So we'll have parking that's close by for residents, and it'll be less of an inconvenience and hassle to move your vehicle, and hopefully the compliance factor will go up as a result of that as well too. The vehicles that do get relocated, you'll be able to find your vehicle on the city website under the Find My Vehicle tab. It's at www.saskatoon.ca, and you'll be able to click on there and find your vehicle. Forgot to mention with regards to the schedule, that the schedule is also developed so that we're not in conflict with the blue bin recycle program and the black bin, the garbage collection for Front Street pickups. So the schedule itself, we have to maintain that so that if a problem happens where one day gets canceled as a result, say of weather problems, whatever, we won't be rescheduling that or going back to that the next day. We'll maintain the schedule because of those collection issues with the garbage and recycling as well. It is a time compressed schedule. We have 13 days to do it. We start on Monday, October 20th, and we'll be complete on Saturday, October 1st. Let me try that again. We'll start on Monday, October 20th, and we'll be complete on Saturday, November 1st. The school zones that are located within these 10 select neighborhoods, we won't be sweeping in front of those schools. This is a daytime schedule only, and we won't be sweeping in front of the neighborhood schools simply because of a safety factor for students. There's a lot of congestion that happens with the student drop-off and pick-up, and of course with the students that do walk to school. And we just don't want large mobile equipment going up and down those streets and putting the students at risk. So those streets will be picked up in the following spring when we do the citywide curb-to-curb sweep, and it won't cause any problems with that small amount that happens in terms of where we don't pick up those leaves on those streets. The question's been asked before about putting leaves onto the street from your lawn. We ask that all residents don't do that, and the reason for that is because, one, it's against the bylaw, the city bylaw, to do so, and we will have to look at enforcement if these issues do continue. The other issue is it does create a problem for the sweepers. There's enough debris right now for the sweepers to pick up, and if you add that extra bundle of leaves, if you want to call it that, off the lawns and off the properties, that will slow the sweepers down. And if the sweepers get bogged down too much, they may have to bypass that street and move on in order to maintain the schedule. Because as I said earlier, the schedule has to be maintained. It's a short time period, and we're trying to beat the weather and get as much done as quickly as possible as we can. With regards to weather itself, if the temperature's cool enough that in the morning time before the scheduled sweep is ready to go, we may have to delay the sweep. If there's temperatures in the -5 range, for example, or if we've got frost on the roads, that sort of thing, we'll have to wait until that warms up. So we may have to delay the sweep until 10 a.m. or roughly to when temperatures are more conducive to the sweep itself. If by chance we happen to get snow, that'll effectively cancel the program. What I want to talk about now briefly is just a high-level overview of some of the changes that are in store for this winter for snow operations. As we received additional funding in 2014 operating budget through decisions made last year in the budgetary process, we were able to make some improvements for this year and this last season as well too, and some of those improvements are continuing from last year that we implemented. An example of that is what we call the Circle Drive Snow Train. That's an 18-piece equipment train of slow-moving equipment. It has everything from loaders to sanders, graders, and as well police escort and signage vehicles. And what that does is as it sounds, like a train of equipment that moves along Circle Drive, removing all the windrows, the stored snow along the side rails of the bridges and the overpasses, so that it can take away any traffic hazard that may create. And what it effectively does is it moves along Circle Drive. We do this at nighttime when traffic is the least amount. And last season when we implemented that in January, it proved to be very effective and very efficient, and we'll continue that again this year. Also, school zones, we're making a change for school zones this year. One of the cries from the public and from administration, as well as from the council that we heard, that is that school zones needed greater attention than what they have received in the past. And through the additional funding, we've been able to put in place a program here where we'll have additional contractors who will augment civic forces, and they'll be able to clear the windrows that we do have around the schools on a much more frequent basis than we have in the past. So we'll be able to remove that hazard that exists for students that are trying to climb over the windrows to get to school, to get out of vehicles, to get on the buses, that sort of thing. And it'll be an enlarged or an enhanced area, if you want to call it that, in front of the schools that will be able to remove those windrows that we do have to store when we do the snow clearing itself. So that's a significant change for this season coming up, and we're very excited about that. We think that's going to prove to be very successful. Area contractors. We've used area contractors the last number of years to augment civic forces when we do have a snow event. And the city was basically divided up into three kind of areas where the City of Saskatoon Public Works looked after the major portion of the city, and we had a contractor that looked after an area on the west end of the city and another contractor that looked after the main portion on the east end of the city. We've taken those two areas and divided them up into 4 areas. So we have additional contractors that we're utilizing, and what we're doing in the event of a snow event, we'll collapse civic forces with inside Circle Drive. So what we find, what we believe will happen with that is we'll have a much more effective response to a snow event, that we'll be able to have more equipment out in a shorter period of time and be able to get the streets clear much more effectively than we were, and it'll be much more cost efficient than past programs were for that too. So that's a significant change. The other one is behind me in the list of equipment that's lined up here, or the row of equipment, is we're going to be doing pre-wetting. And pre-wetting is a process where we apply a liquid chemical. It's a magnesium chloride that we apply to the sand salt mixture that comes out of the back of the salt spreaders just prior to being applied to the road surface. And what that does is it lowers the eutectic temperature of salt, which makes it much more effective, so that it has a much lower freezing rate than just ordinary salt that's untreated. And by doing that as well, the sand and the salt mixture as well will also be able to adhere to the roadway much better than it does without being pre-wetted. So when it hits the roadway, it's a dry mixture, whereas here it will adhere to the roadway and act as a much better traction agent. The salt portion of the salt sand mixture will also then be activated quicker. It'll have, like I say, a lower freezing temperature, so it'll be effective longer than it was in the past as well. And we're going to use that on the high traffic volume streets, the Priority 1 streets, as well as Circle Drive. So that'll be a much more safer motoring experience for all the vehicles and the operators out there as well. So that's one of a few of the major changes that are happening this winter. We're going to have more information when we get a little closer to winter, which hopefully is a few more weeks away, but we'll see what Mother Nature throws at us. And just to reassure everyone that should we have a snow event that happens sooner than later, we are ready to respond and ready to go.